Lehman Brothers, Goldman Sachs, false flag, terror attacks, Bill Gates, Henry Kissinger, New World Order, mind control, Bank of America stealing homes with cut and paste mortgage loans, police, state, taser guns, FEMA camps, mad run, Monsanto rules the food supply while Big Pharma dopes your mind, prison system, puppeteers, foundations, fund the fears, fund the evil through the years, the world's not as it appears. CIA smuggles drugs while Wachovia and Wells Fargo launder them, then give the proceeds to the owners of the Federal Reserve Bank. Now the IRS takes money out of every single check. Money created out of thin air and leave you with debt. They want to make you a serf, a slave to their demand. They want to take your life in every way they can. Fluoride, GMO, vaccines, chemtrails, United Nations genocide. The world they show us is not real. This is how they kill and steal. Rothschild, Bundy, Rockefeller, Club of Rome. On the Georgia Guidestones it's written in stone. Cut through the matrix, awaken to the lies. Do not be hypnotized. We are one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Eustace Mullins furnished tremendous work, and I've always been a avid reader of his work and rereading it and then connecting dots as things change. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2010. But left behind a legacy that is undoubtedly immeasurable. And I'm going to dedicate this segment, again, I'm supposed to be on hiatus here on Truth Talk News, to Eustace Mullins' work. I happen to, again, for the maybe 10th time, was just skimming through the world order. And I came across 20 pages that I think are pertinent today to understand what's going on. In 2012, as it comes to a close with the psyop of the Mayan calendar and other things that are brewing. Again, I really didn't plan on doing this. I don't know, maybe I just can't stop giving you the information you need to learn and fight the New World Order. It's not a joke. It's important. And research what I show you. Find your own truth. There is only one truth, and that's the truth. Share it. Make your own tapes. Make your own recordings. Do your own little blurbs, even if it's a minute long. Rant. You know the truth. Once you find the truth, scream it out loud. And activists get together. We have to continue to for lack of a better word, unionize and come together as the new true media. We know the lies the mainstream media are spewing, and we must expose their lies with truth. Unbridled truth. Like tonight, here on Truth Talk News with Eustace Mullins. Now, again, Eustace Mullins, for those that
aren't aware of him. He's written several books that he's famous for. Most famous for is probably Secrets of the Federal Reserve. Then, of course, he wrote The World Order. Now, Eustace also worked for the Library of Congress. He is under a I just lost the streaming again, interestingly enough. Hopefully I won't have to cut this into pieces. Well, Eustace, again, worked for the Library of Congress, and he came across Ezra Pound's, became a protege of Ezra Pound, and who put him on the task of finding out about the Federal Reserve, which led him to where we are right now, exposing the Federal Reserve crime syndicate for what it is, and who better than Eustace Mullins to demonstrate this? Okay, so what do we have here? We have I'm going to just go from this point. Many Americans are puzzled by the relentless devotion of the Rockefeller Foundation to financing communist organizations in many parts of the world. This dedication to communism can be traced back to a crucial moment in the Bolsheviks' march to power. In 1917, Mackenzie King had established a lifelong relationship with John D. Rockefeller, whom he met in June of 1914. They had been born in the same year, 1874, and seemed to agree on everything. Soon, King was working closely with Frederick T. Gates, no relation to Bill Gates, and Ivy Lee to further the Rockefeller philanthropies, which seemed to view communism as the ideal vehicle to bring about world brotherhood. King wrote to his friend Violet Markham. Now remember, these extreme communists, you're talking about Albert Pike and this whole, the connection with the Masons. This is a horrible truth. All right, well, I'm going to continue. So the Rockefeller philanthropies, which seem to view communism as the ideal vehicle to bring about world brotherhood. King wrote to his friend Violet Markham, John D. Rockefeller Jr., the truest follower of Christ, has one purpose, to serve his fellow man. Well, ladies and gentlemen, he has served his fellow man, hasn't he? They have certainly served their fellow men. King resolved that his one purpose was to serve Rockefeller. He testified for him at the trial investigation of the Colorado Iron and Fuel Company massacre before the Walsh Committee. Now, the Rockefellers later tried to have Walsh framed and expelled from the Senate, but failed to do so due to the obstinacy of Burton J. Wheeler. Okay. So, I'm sorry, I just noticed we lost stream again. Hopefully this thing isn't getting all chopped up. But what I was talking about was that it's unbelievable to say that John D. Rockefeller, the truest follower of Christ, has one purpose, to serve his fellow man. It's like that book To Serve Man in that Twilight Zone episode. It's a cookbook, okay? That's what it is. The Rockefellers, the evilest of the evil. Unbelievable. So now, of course, they became philanthropists and gave away all their money. Yeah. Got bridges to sell you if you want to buy that. Please, come on. Rockefellers are, give me money so I can help to feed the starving in Africa. Give me money so I can help feed the children, and UNICEF and give them vaccines and all this. Give us money to do all these things, and look what happens. There's still poverty. There's still starvation. Increased death. That's the truth. Anyway, I'm digressing from the great Eustace Mullins' work. So, of course, many Americans are puzzled by this, that a guy like John D. Rockefeller, who can call himself the truest follower of Christ, or Violet Markham would call John D. Rockefeller the truest follower of Christ, with one purpose, to serve his fellow man. The whole thing with the Colorado Iron and Fuel Massacre, that was the Ludlow incident, where family was actually, the Pinkertons went down there and actually burned an entire village of people that were protesting their slave labor wages. And a whole family. I mean, we're talking about men, women, and children, fathers, daughters, sons, grandfathers, uncles, aunts, all slaughtered and burned alive in their home. It's on record. Happened in 1914. It's called the Ludlow Massacre. And now they're going to massacre us again at the fuel pump pretty soon, continuing the devaluation of our dollar and the devaluation of the currency and the devaluation of all things that are real. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So now we have the situation where many Americans are puzzled by this situation we're in, where it really goes back to these criminals. Now, the Walsh Committee, the Rockefeller, of course, later had Walsh framed and expelled from the Senate, but it didn't work, as I mentioned. J. Edgar Hoover played a crucial role in setting up the frame with regards to framing Senator Walsh. Now, you got to understand, it's all about control. So the Rockefellers helped Mackenzie King obtain government contracts for the Canadian Army during World War I. Now, listen to this horror. And this is happening today. Again, remember they were talking about the shoddy equipment they get, that it's not good to help, and then the shoddy care they get. It's all of the soldiers, our brave military that are sent to war for these globalist corporations to make profits. It's disgusting. In the name of liberty and freedom. Big lie. So the Rockefellers helped Mackenzie King obtain government contracts for the Canadian Army during World War I, which set up King for later blackmail, the Panama hold over the vassals. He had this whole connection here. And anyway, King sold hundreds of tons of rotten meat to the Canadian Army in Europe, and boots of leather that were mostly pasteboard and disintegrated immediately in the water-soaked trenches, rifles that jammed when they were fired, and collar-type life preservers, which broke the soldiers' necks when they jumped in the water. Meanwhile, Leon Trotsky was in New York in 1917, and he received word to return to Russia at once to help bring off the Bolshevik seizure of power. The Rockefellers gave him $10,000 in cash for his journey, procured a special passport for him from President Woodrow Wilson, and sent Lincoln Steffens to safeguard him on the journey. While Trotsky's ship was stopped in Halifax, the Canadian Secret Service, warned that he was on board, arrested him on April 3, 1917, and interned him in Nova Scotia. The patriotic agents knew that Trotsky was on his way to Russia to take Russia out of the war against Germany, which would free many German divisions to attack the Canadian troops on the Western Front. Prime Minister Lloyd George indignantly cabled demands from London that Trotsky be released. But the Secret Service ignored him. By means never explained, Mackenzie King then stepped into the breach and obtained Trotsky's freedom. Trotsky continued on his way to Russia and became Lenin's chief deputy in the extermination of Russian citizens. He also organized the Red Army with the able help of Wall Street lawyer Thomas D. Thatcher. The agents who had arrested Trotsky were dismissed from the service. Their careers were ended, and as a reward for his intervention, the Rockefellers appointed Mackenzie King head of the Rockefeller Foundation Department of Industrial Research at a salary of $30,000 a year, at a time when the average wage in the United States was $500 per year. Frank Walsh testified before a United States commission that the Rockefeller Foundation was a cloak for the Rockefeller plan to lead organized labor into slavery. King also became a director of the Carnegie Corporation. A Lady Laurier left him a large mansion in Ottawa, and in 1921, a group of well-wishers, led by Peter Larkin, refurbished and staffed it for him at a cost of $255,000. That's a pretty incredible amount of money at that time. Then King appointed Larkin High Commissioner of Canada in London. Unbearable. I mean, I can't even stand it anymore. Continuing on. On King's 74th birthday in 1948, John D. Rockefeller gave him $100,000. The Rockefeller Foundation then put up $300,000 to pay for the writing of King's memoirs. In his final years, King, still on the take, was exposed as a principal in the $30 million Bureau Honest Power Company swindle during the building of the St. Lawrence Seaway. King had accepted $700,000 from Buharness, whatever his name is, Buharness, from the Liberal Party and other enticements that had received trips from Bermuda. The Rockefeller Foundation, of course, is involved and figured in many pro-Soviet deals during the 1920s. This is on record, of course. Because the struggle for power, which developed between Stalin and Trotsky, the Rockefellers intervened in October 1926 and backed Stalin, ousting Trotsky. Years later, they would intervene when the Kremlin was racked by disagreements. David Rockefeller summarily fired Khrushchev. John D. Rockefeller instructed his press agent, Ivy Lee, in 1925 to promote communism in the United States and to spark plug a public relations drive which culminated in 1933 with the U.S. government recognition of Soviet Russia. It's unbelievable. These things are like continuously, generationally happening. Okay? In 1927, it's not really quite in a chronological order, I'm sorry, but in 1927, Standard Oil of New Jersey built a refinery in Russia after having promised 50% of the Caucasus oil production. The Rockefeller firm Vacuum Oil signed an agreement with the Soviet naphtha syndicate to sell Russian oil in Europe and made a $75 million loan to Russia. John Moody had stated in 1911 that Standard Oil Company was really a bank of the most gigantic character, a bank within an industry, lending vast sums of money to needy borrowers just as other great banks were doing. The company was known as the Standard Oil Bank. Rockefeller was no banker. This meant the Standard Oil was being directed by professional bankers. The Standard Oil operation had always been directed by the most professional bankers in the world, the Rothschilds. Consequently, the Rothschilds, through their agents, Kuhn, Loeb and Company, have maintained close supervision of the Rockefeller fortune. In 1935, Stalin expropriated many foreign investments in Russia, but the Standard Oil properties were not touched. The 5-year plans, 1928 to 32, 33 to 37, and 38 to 42, were all financed by the international banking houses. During the 1920s, the principal firms doing business with Russia were Vacuum Oil, International Harvester, Guaranteed Trust, and New York Life, all firms controlled by the Morgan Rockefeller interests. Author Upham Pope's biography of Litvinov notes that in March of 1921, a trade agreement was signed with Great Britain, providing that gold sent in payment for machines bought by Russia would not be confiscated towards old debts or claims. This ensured that Tsarist gold sent to England would not be seized by his cousins, the British royal family. On July 7, 1922, Litvinov revealed that the Russian delegation at the Hague Conference was negotiating with an important group of financiers, including Otto Kahn of Kuhn, Loeb and Company, and a week later, Kahn arrived at The Hague and stated, "The conference with the Russians will bring useful results and will lead to a closer approach to unity of views and policies on the part of England, France, and the United States in respect to the Russian situation." Okay, this is how it happened. The revolution of Russia and continuing it on and continuing to make certain that it survived. When Otto Kahn's wife visited Russia in 1936, she was treated like visiting royalty. In 1922, the Chase National Bank had established the American-Russian Chamber of Commerce to promote trade with the government and the recognition of Russia. Its chairman was Reeve Sheely, a vice president of Chase. He was a director of many corporations, including Howe Sound, Electric Boat, the Yale Corporation, chairman of Sunstrand and the Underwood, and had served as the director of the United States Fuel Administration from 1917 to 1919. His son, Reeve Sheely, Jr., was a captain in the OSS under General Donovan in World War II. Both Chase and Equitable Trust led in granting credits to the Soviet Union during the 20s. In 1934, Roosevelt established the Export-Import Bank to finance increased trade with the Soviet Union. During World War II, Chase was Amtorg's principal bank. in handling many billions of dollars of lend-lease transactions for Russia. Roosevelt went all out in supporting the Soviets, perhaps all because all three of his personal assistants, Alger Hiss, Lautland Curry, Harry Dexter White, were identified as Soviet agents. Hiss's mentor was Dean Acheson, formerly of J.P. Morgan. Assistant Secretary of State A.A. Burrell Jr. testified before the House Un-Americans Activities Committee on August 30th, 1948, that Acheson was the head of the pro-Russian group in the State Department. Acheson later became senior partner of Covington and Burling, obtaining the position of the firm of Washington legal representative for 9 communist governments. On April 29, 1943, the Board of Economic Warfare granted a special license to Chemical Corporation of New York to fill an order from the Soviet Purchasing Commission for 2,001 pounds of uranium oxide, 221 pounds of uranium nitrate, and 25 pounds of uranium metal, commodities virtually unknown at the time, thus launching the Soviet atomic program. Even today, every American citizen's lives are under the threat of Soviet nuclear war. Now, this is back in 1984, and actually 1985. This is true. The threat of this was because of what they've had, but they've always had it. So the political structure is what's changed. But the oligarchs' control patterns and things have not. The Illuminati exists and continues to exist and thrive. On January 29, 1944, Special Ambassador W. Averell Harriman in Moscow informed the State Department that we must turn over to the Russians the currency printing plates which have been engraved for the U.S. Treasury by Forbes Company of Boston. The State Department delayed action on the request for several weeks. On March 22nd, Harry Dexter White met with Gromyko in the Soviet embassy and assured him the plates would be delivered. Both Harriman and White made daily demands that the plates were turned over to the Soviet Union. On April 14, 1944, the Soviet Union then printed $300 million in currency, which was redeemed by the American taxpayers. How nice was that? There's your New Deal, baby. After the Cold War began, the financiers continued their efforts to aid the Soviets. In 1967, the New York Times announced that a new consortium had been formed to promote trade with Russia, composed of Cyrus Eaton's Tower Corp., Rockefeller's International Basic Economic Corp., and N.M. Rothschild & Sons of London. Eaton had begun his career at a $2 a day factum for John D. Rockefeller, who later financed his purchase of Canadian Gas and Electric Corp. Eaton stated that Rockefeller soon interested him in Russian affairs. In an interview with Mike Wallace, Eaton claimed that under communism, the people of the Soviet Union were entirely contented. They were happy. I was amused at their happiness and dedication to the system. Eaton was one of the first defenders of the Stalin-Hitler pact in 1939. The Rothschilds have rarely been identified with communist causes, preferring to remain in the background. Only one member, N.M. Victor Rothschild, who served as an apprenticeship with the J.P. Morgan Corporation, had become involved in the Apostles' Club at Cambridge, described by Michael Straight as composed of communists who were also homosexual. It is also known that members were Guy Burgess and Donald McLean, Anthony Blunt, keeper of the Queen's Pictures, and the double or triple agent Kim Philby. During World War II, Victor Rothschild, who was with MI5, lent his London flat at number 5 Bentonic Street to Burgess, while his mother, Mrs. Charles Rothschild, hired Burgess as her investment counselor. Blunt left the staff of the Warburg Institute to work with MI5. He introduced Victor Rothschild to his aunt, Teresa Mayer, who later became Lady Rothschild. Now, the Rockefeller family is sometimes called the first family of the Soviet Union. When Nelson Rockefeller was nominated for vice president in 1967, Pravda indignantly denounced his critics, saying that charges against Rockefeller were designed only to discredit him and that the accusations came from ultra-right-wing organizations. Senator Frank Church, attending the 1971 Dartmouth Conference in Kiev, was amazed to find that David Rockefeller was treated like we would treat royalty in this country. The Russian people appear to evince adoration of Rockefeller that is puzzling. When David Rockefeller's plane lands in Russia, crowds line up to greet him at the airport, and same thing in China, and line the streets of Moscow in his limousine passes. Unbelievable. incredible. It just goes on and on. I want to give some good bullet points here before we move on to the very important, the words of the evil. I'm going to call it the evil from their mouths, or I don't know. I have to give this, like, this segment coming up a good title. The New World Order in the evil scum's own words. I mean, in the word, speaking the evil. The evildoers speaking the evil. There we go. It just took a moment. This is, after all, live. Right here. It's 9:26 p.m. on December 5th. And I'm Howard Nema, and this is Truth Talk News. I want to again thank everybody for watching and staying tuned and keeping this broadcast alive. Thanks to Harry Link and Pam Suggs at UnitedTruthSeekers.com and everybody that gets this broadcast out and doing all the work that everyone's doing to help stop the New World Order. Harry will be coming on at 10 p.m. with Death to the New World Order. And I want to thank everybody else that's been working real hard, especially hammering the New World Order. You got Spike, and we have, of course, Jeff Watala with American Dissident on Saturdays. So please try to share these broadcasts. Stay with TruthBroadcastNetwork.com. It's the place to be. All right, moving on. In 1973, it was a pivotal year. I'm like going to go into the Rockefellers, especially opening the doors to China. The USSR Trade and Economic Council, consisting of leading U.S. heads of corporation, was formed to promote trade, to read gifts to the Soviet Union. In 1976, G.M. Miller of Textron was named head of the council. Shortly afterwards, he was appointed chairman of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors by Jimmy Carter. The Bolshevik Revolution, which was nurtured through the most trying days by three directors of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, William Boyce Thompson, George Foster Peabody, and William Woodward, continues to be supported by the Federal Reserve System. Okay? Remember? War. It's a war machine. The Federal Reserve System maintains close ties with the Gosbank and the Soviet Central Bank, which controls the Communist Party of the USSR at this time. And it's no different now. It's even worse. It's even more controlled. At that time, the Gosbank employed 5,000 economists, interestingly enough. Unbelievable truth. Unbelievable truth. So you have this whole Central Bankers Club. The Ponzi operation was made possible by the exclusive Central Bankers Club, the Bank for International Settlements, which had been established by Haldmar Schacht, financier of the Nazi movement, Emile Franqui, guiding genius of Hoover's Belgian Relief Commission, which was a tremendous fraud, another communist plot, and John Foster Dulles, heir to the most dangerous man in history, except for, of course, William Cooper. It was set up in May 1930 by the Hague Commission, or the Hague Treaty, to handle German reparation payments, which, of course, were never actually paid. Now, the BIS controls 1/10 of the world's gold at the time, which it rents out at a profit. The assets have increased by an astronomical 1,200% in 20 years. That was going 20 years back from, I guess, 65 to 85. Oh, yeah, these criminals are bad. These criminals are bad. All right, I'm going to give him more information about Eustace Mullins in other reports. But please, check out his work, The World Order. This is all where this is coming from, and it's all documented mostly from congressional testimony, all from Library of Congress research. Federal government was used again. The idea of using the federal government as a police force back then, even the federal government uses its armed police, the IRS, the FBI, and the BATF, which is the ATF. And the CIA solely to terrorize its American subjects into compliance with the program of the World Order. Most American citizens have come to the painful realization that the FBI is not concerned with fighting communism, but only with battling American anti-communists. Now they realize that the IRS functions as an armed group of terrorists, not to collect funds of which the government has no need, but solely to extort money by force from the American citizens as part of the program of the World Order. Amen. God rest your soul, Eustace. And we're going to cover the world order. Well, that's what I do here. Fighting the New World Order. I'm Howard Nema. Stay tuned. Watching Truth Talk News on truthbroadcastnetwork.com. Stay tuned for more truth the mainstream media ignores in just a moment.
United Homeland Security requests that everybody stay in their homes.
I'm the only major candidate who opposed this war from the beginning. And as president, I will end it. Second, I will cut tens of billions of dollars in wasteful spending. That's why I've proposed an additional $1 billion in non-military assistance each year.
That for the first time in all of human history, mankind is politically awakened. That's a total new reality. Total new reality. It has not been so for most of human history until the last 100 years.
How would you rate the United Nations in helping solve some of the geopolitical problems we've had? Some people say they're not adding a lot of solutions, and some people even suggest we should have another organization internationally that can do the job that the United Nations should be doing. And even people are talking about one world governments. I mean, how do you view the UN right now?
Well, there should be such an organization. The word should implies that there is a kind of moral imperative or need for it. But it doesn't exist. Why doesn't it exist? Because we don't have a situation in which there is a concentrated source of power that has universal reach. Not even America has that. So the United Nations functions well in areas in which it is possible to generate consensus. And that deals usually with elements pertaining to human suffering, or to well-being, or to health. For example, the Food Organization, the Health Organization, the relief agencies, or arbitration of conflicts of secondary importance, in which the international community can kind of endorse what the UN is doing. But the UN is not a world government. The UN, when it comes to politics, is based on a fiction, namely 190 states which are members, each of which is co-equal with the others, except for the 5 that have the veto right in the Security Council. So it is an organization which reflects the ongoing diversity of the world. And I think we have, as a consequence, we have to realize that real solutions to political problems, to political conflicts, come from those entities that have power and have the willingness or the ability to coalesce, or get stymied in the process, or even go into conflict. The UN can deal with areas regarding which there's a great deal of international consensus, like the ones I've mentioned. And that reality is going to continue for some time to come.
The fall of the Berlin Wall brought new hope. But that very closeness has given rise to new dangers. Dangers that cannot be contained within the borders of a country or by the distance of an ocean. Think about it. The terrorists of September 11th plotted in Hamburg and trained in Kandahar and Karachi before killing thousands from all over the globe on American soil.
As we speak, cars in Boston and factories in Beijing are melting the ice caps in the Arctic, shrinking coastlines in the Atlantic, and bringing drought to farms from Kansas to Kenya. Poorly secured nuclear material in the former Soviet Union, or secrets from a scientist in Pakistan, could help build a bomb that detonates in Paris. The poppies in Afghanistan come to Berlin in the form of heroin. The poverty and violence in Somalia breeds the terror of tomorrow. The genocide in Darfur shames the conscience of us all. In this new world,
So what did you do about it,
such dangerous currents,
Mr. President, in this new world order?
And that is why we cannot afford to be divided. No one nation, no matter how large or powerful, can defeat such challenges alone. None of us can deny these threats or escape responsibility in meeting them. Yet in the absence of Soviet tanks and a terrible wall, it has become easy to forget this truth. And if we're honest with each other, we know that sometimes on both sides of the Atlantic, we have drifted apart and forgotten our shared destiny. Yes, there have been differences between America and Europe. No doubt there will be differences in the future. But the burdens of global citizenship continue to bind us together. A change of leadership in Washington will not lift this burden. In this new century, Americans and Europeans alike will be required to do more, not less. Partnership and cooperation among nations is not a choice. It is the only way, the one way, to protect our common security and advance our common humanity. In this new world, such dangerous currents have swept along faster than our efforts to contain them, and that is why we cannot afford to be divided. No one nation, no matter how large or powerful, can defeat such challenges alone. None of us can deny these threats or escape responsibility in meeting them. Yet in the absence of Soviet tanks and a terrible wall, it has become easy to forget this truth. And if we're honest with each other, we know that sometimes on both sides of the Atlantic, we have drifted apart and forgotten our shared destiny. Yes, there have been differences between America and Europe. No doubt there will be differences in the future. But the burdens of global citizenship continue to bind us together. A change of leadership in Washington will not lift this burden. In this new century, Americans and Europeans alike will be required to do more, not less. Partnership and cooperation among nations is not a choice. It is the only way, the one way, to protect our common security and advance our common humanity. That is why the greatest danger of all is to allow new walls to divide us from one another. The walls between old allies on either side of the Atlantic cannot stand. The walls between the countries with the most and those with the least cannot stand. The walls between races and tribes, natives and immigrants, Christians and Muslims and Jews cannot stand. These now are the walls we must tear down.
The way we're going to win over the long term is not just militarily. We've got to win over hearts and minds. And what that means is we've got to invest in countries that have no educational infrastructure, have no means for young people to get ahead. We've got to give them a stake in creating the kind of world order that I think all of us would like to see.
You know, at home I've often spoken about a new era of responsibility. And I believe that this era must not end at our borders. In a world that's more and more interconnected, We all have responsibilities to work together to solve common challenges. And although it will take time, I am confident that we will rebuild global prosperity if we act with a common sense of purpose, persistence, and the optimism that the moment demands.
Don't assume it was left by accident. If you see something, say something.
They're just giving money to their buddies.
I don't think that private institutions should have control over a nation's currency.
We need a manufacturing base, and then our economy will take off like a rocket again.
A special televised meeting of the New York-based Council on Foreign Relations provides a window to the real story.
The speaker, Vice President Dick Cheney, takes a question from David Rockefeller.
Vice President, I just enjoyed so much your whole speech, but I was particularly pleased that you gave such a strong endorsement for the free trade agreement for all the Americans, subject that has been of great concern to me for many years, and particularly recently, and I think it's absolutely essential for the strength of our economy.
Rockefeller's role in the drive for an FTAA was a lot more central than he portrays. Rockefeller cultivated Latin American leaders who could be counted on to support such a proposal. Both the 1994 Miami Summit and the FTAA proposal were conceived and nurtured by a Rockefeller-created network. Prominent among the organizations sponsoring the Miami event were the Council of the Americas, founder and honorary chairman David Rockefeller, the Americas Society, chairman David Rockefeller, the Forum of the Americas, founder David Rockefeller, the Institute for International Economics, financial backer and board member David Rockefeller, the Trilateral Commission, founder and honorary chairman David Rockefeller.
Thank you very much, Richard, and I am delighted to be here in these new headquarters. I have been often to, I guess, the mothership in New York City, but it's good to have an outpost of the council right here down the street from the State Department. We get a lot of advice from the council, so this will mean I won't have this far to go to be told what we should be doing and how we should think about the future.
He was chairman emeritus of the CFR when Vice President Dick Cheney once served as a director, a relationship that Cheney concealed during his congressional career.
It's good to be back at the Council on Foreign Relations. As Pete mentioned, I've been a member for a long time and was actually a director for some period of time. I never mentioned that when I was campaigning for re-election back home in Wyoming.
Too many kids are what's making the planet worse.
A lot of these kids come from bad gene pools. They don't have stable parents making good decisions.
Mercury-containing vaccines may help, not harm kids, according to 2 new studies in the journal Pediatrics. These new studies suggest that the opposite, that the preservatives may actually be associated with improved behavior and mental performance.
Fluoride in water is supposed to fight tooth decay, but could it also cause cancer?
Turns out the government had the right under U.S. law to conduct secret testing on the American public.
Sponsored experiments did take place at hospitals, universities, and military bases around our nation. Some were unethical, not only by today's standards, but by the standards of the time in which they were conducted.
Any attempt to achieve world order must be the work of the devil. Well, join me. I'm glad to sit here at the right hand of Satan.
There's a need for a new world order. Someday, in the next few years, a solution will emerge.
The Great Wall is no longer a wall dividing China from the rest of the world, but it is a reminder of the fact that there are many walls still existing in the world which divide nations and peoples. But we are determined that those differences not prevent us from living together in peace. The interest that each of us has to maintain our independence and the security of our peoples, and the hope that each of us has to build a new world order.
We are in process of developing a whole series of techniques which will enable the controlling oligarchy to get people actually to love their servitude. People can be made to enjoy a state of affairs which, by any decent standard, they ought not to enjoy.
What is at stake
is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind: peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law.
Republican and Democratic presidents alike, from Harry Truman to George Bush, stood for freedom and stood for certain propositions that would make America strong and healthy and grow the middle class and shrink poverty and stand against communism. And after 1989, President Bush said, and it's a phrase that I often use myself, that we needed a new world order.
I think its task will be to develop an overall strategy for America in this period when really a new world order can be created. It's a great opportunity. It isn't just a crisis.
A new world is emerging. It is a new world order with significantly different and radically new challenges for the future.
The year is 2017. You're rushed to a hospital unconscious with no ID or medical history, but thanks to a microchip under your skin, it's all there. Science fiction 20 years ago, but a biometric reality today.
The technology is based on answering one simple question: am I who I say I am?
Already, fingerprints and iris scans verify passenger identities at airports. Within 10 years, that technology may be even more widespread. And look for more complex facial recognition programs that scan a crowd of thousands looking for a single terrorist. The latest home security locks use fingerprints to control deadbolts. And at the Jewel Osco grocery store in Chicago, some customers pay using their fingerprints. No paper or plastic.
You don't really need anything other than your hand, and you already got that with you.
Now the UN is backing a plan to change all of that and creating a global currency.
And now, Harry Link with Death to the New World Order here on TruthBroadcastNetwork.com. Stay tuned. This is where truth, the mainstream media ignores, is the top story, and your voice is heard.